Hi, I'm Bridget Indelicato, and welcome to Mindful Gardening. I'll be showing you when and how to transplant your seedlings into potting soil as they continue to grow indoors before they're ready for your garden. Transplanting your seedlings from seed starting mix to potting soil gives them the nutrition they need as they continue to mature. And upsizing their pots gives them room to grow into healthy plants, like these tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and parsley. Let's go back a few weeks and I'll show you how I transplanted these. I'm going to be transplanting my tomato plants. I have several in each cell. I have about 3 in each. And tomatoes, as long as you're handling the roots carefully and you're not damaging them, you can transplant all of these. So today I'll just be showing you some of them. And I also have parsley, which I have roughly about 3 as well. And these I will also be transplanting into a bigger pot in potting mix. And I like to use organic potting mix. It really holds moisture well, and these are also specifically formulated for herbs and vegetables. So they'll be getting the nutrition they need beyond the seedling mix. So first what I'll do, these are about 3.5, 4-inch pots. So you just want to upsize it a little bit, and then as they get bigger, you can transplant them into bigger pots before they make their way into your garden. Typically, I end up with about a 6-inch to 8-inch pot before it's ready to transplant into the garden. So I've got my pre-moistened potting mix. It's nicely clumping. So I'm just gonna fill that up. Again, pat down a little. Just going to pre-fill all of them so that they can get in there as quickly as possible once they're out of their little cozy cell packs. My hand a little rinse. Now, how do I know these are ready to transplant? If you look at my tomato plants, they have what you'd recognize as true leaves, so the tomato leaf. Unlike these first ones that emerge, these tiny little guys that emerge when they first sprout. So I have actually got another 2 coming in. I've got 4 sets coming in, so they're prime time ready. If I waited too much longer, they would be competing for space with the roots at the bottom and probably would die. So they are ready to be transplanted. Same with my parsley. These are mossed curled parsley, and you can see that their true leaves have come in as well. They're a nice curly variety, very mild flavor, unlike the flat leaf Italian, which is a little more potent. These make a nice garnish, just a really mild parsley flavor. So I'm going to start with my tomato plants. These are yellow pear-shaped tomato. They are sort of a mid-size cherry tomato kind of variety, but you can use them in salads, fresh, or preserves. So what I'm going to do is just gently loosen the soil and not really tugging terribly much. Just want to get them out of the cell pack. There we go. And you can see their little root system poking out. And then I'm just going to gently separate. You can hold the bottom, try not to hold the top where it's a little weaker. The bottom's always going to be the strongest. And I'm just going to gently pull them apart without ripping the roots. And there we go. There is a perfect little tomato plant ready to be transplanted into a larger pot and continue growing indoors under my grow lights until I upsize them again and get them ready to plant in my garden. So today I'm just going to show you a couple of these getting transplanted. You're going to look for your healthiest, best looking, even largest plant to transplant. So when I look at these, they all look really good actually. I'm going to select those two. I'm just going to tuck that little guy in there. Now I'm ready to transplant into my pots. So what you want to do is just take your fingers and create a nice hole. And because it's pre-moistened, it's going to create a nice hole for you without the soil falling in. And now I'm going to take it, and with tomatoes, you can bury the bottom of the stem a little bit. And what will happen is it will create more roots, more stability for your plant. And that's something that you'll think about too when you're planting them in your garden. So I'm going to drop it in not too deeply, but I'm not going to worry about it getting too buried, because once that stem is buried, roots will start to take. And I'm going to just want to gently pat around so that that soil is really hugging the roots and the stem. And it's not going to move too much once it settles and gets watered. So there we go. Beautiful, perfect little transplant. I'm going to do my next one. Again, just take your hands. You could use a spoon or a tool, but I just find this works quite well, and it's nice to be able to touch soil. If you're like me, touching soil gives me a lot of joy. So why not get your hands dirty when you can? Now what will happen is this will have so much room to expand its root system. It's going to have some nutrition from this potting soil, unlike the seedling mix, which was just essentially to get it to germinate. Again, another little perfect guy. And these will go under grow lights again and continue growing until I'm ready to plant them in the garden. My parsley, similar. They're a pretty tough plant too when you're handling their root system. Some plants that have a more delicate root system, or cucumber, for example, they really don't like to be transplanted. They can be, but you want to be very careful with their root system. And you don't want the plant to be too mature when you're transplanting because that root system is so established. So keep that in mind. But again, tomatoes and parsley, they're pretty tough, but you just continue to be gentle with them. So again, same as I did with my tomatoes, I'm going to loosen them. And they have a much thinner stem, so I'm going to be careful not to break it. There we go. And look at that incredible root system. And you can see it's prime time to get these transplanted. You've got them circling like that. You've got 3 plants in here. So with these, I'm just, again, loosen as much as you can. You may tear some of that root, which isn't the end of the world, but try your best not to. Again, just keep being gentle. I can hear a bit of tearing, but that's all right. As long as I've got that a nice, good established clump to accompany the plant. Get those. Now, because this is so long, and I do have a nice sort of nest there, I'm just going to gently remove some of that bottom stuff. And there's still lots of root for this plant. Let's see my next good looking one. I love growing parsley. They are a lovely herb to have. in the garden, and they just keep giving right through till frost. You can still be picking your, or I should say cutting parsley. You just cut back the leaves as you need them and new leaves will grow. There we go. Look at those two really nice root systems on those two. They've got a really nice base. And again, like I said, if I was selecting my best plants, those two would definitely be the winners. This is a little guy. However, he will still grow into a beautiful parsley plant. So don't toss him if you don't want to. So again, like my tomatoes, I'm going to create a little hole with these. I just want to bury those roots. I don't necessarily have to bury the stem. And the leaves do come right up to the stem, so I don't want to bury the leaves. And these are in the carrot family, so they create a roots, sort of tap root like a carrot eventually. So that's what you'll get in the center of your parsley plant. So it's going to have a nice anchor eventually. There we go. Okay. And my next one. And parsley is a biennial plant, meaning it will produce seeds in its second year. So these are parsley I'll be eating and growing this season coming up, but I do have parsley plants in my garden that were planted last year. So those will produce seeds for me this year. So I'll have both growing in the garden at the same time. There we go. He's a little floppy, but he'll perk up eventually. And you want to give these a little light watering as well before they head back under the grow lights. And then the last thing I will do is label these, especially if you're growing different varieties of tomatoes. They all kind of look alike. Your parsleys too, you may grow Italian, flat leaf, and these curly ones. Even though they're pretty identifiable, it's still a good idea to label them. So what I'm going to do is what I already had in my labels here. I'll just use one of those, my yellow pear, and then I will get a new tag. I like to reuse them, so I just scratched out what was there before. I'm just going to write on the other side. So again, I've got my yellow pear-shaped tomato. And there we go. So once they go back under the lights with my other plants, I will know who is who. Same as my parsley. If I plant all of these and I don't have my little cell pack that needs the label anymore, I can just tuck that right in there. And again, curled moss, parsley. And there we go. These guys are ready to go back under the lights for a few more weeks. It's been a few weeks since I planted these tomato plants into these 4-inch pots from these small cell packs. And as you can see, they're larger and very healthy looking. And I'm ready to upsize my pot to this 6-inch pot. And they will stay in here until they're ready to go into my garden, usually by early June. And the reason I'm upsizing the pot is it will give the root system more room to grow. And also I'll be adding more potting mix, which in turn will give these plants more nutrition. Now keep this in mind when you're starting your seeds. If you start your seeds too early, your plants can get quite large and they can outgrow your grow station. So keep to the recommended grow period. For tomatoes, it's 6 to 8 weeks. You don't want to go any earlier than that or you'll have pretty large plants. Now these plants actually formed some flowers in the last week. And I've actually pinched them off because I want the energy of this plant to go into its root system, not into the production of fruit and seed at this time. We'll wait until they're in my garden bed for that. Now before I plant them into the larger pot, I'm actually going to do some trimming of its lower leaves. So these lower leaves I'm going to cut off so that I can bury the stem, similar to what I did with my smaller seedlings when I was transferring them into the 4-inch pot. And what that will do is it will allow roots to continue growing, and I'm going to have a nicely anchored plant with a really healthy root system. And this has lots of foliage up top to absorb light, so I'm not worried that I'm going to be hurting this plant. It's going to be just fine. So I'm going to take a nice clean pair of hand pruners. I could pinch these, but I'd like a nice clean cut. So I'm just going to go as close to the plant as I can, or to the stem. And we're just going to snip off all of those lower leaves. Usually about maybe 3 leaves or so. There. And now what that will do is allow me to bury the plant, giving it a good at least 2 inches to expand its root system. This one as well. So I'm just going to get close to the stem. I might take that one off as well. And also, if there were any side shoots coming out in these arms, you could also pinch those. I can see they're just about to form. And again, the more you take away from the plant in those parts they don't need right now, the more energy is going to go back into that root system, just giving you a really healthy plant before it goes out into your garden. Now I've got my pre-moistened potting mix, so I've already gone into my sink and moistened it, squished it with my hands. As you can see, it's got a nice form when I squeeze it. And what that does is it gives the plant a nice, welcome, moist environment when you're first planting. And then the water, when you water from top, will actually absorb better. It'll receive it almost like a sponge. So what I'm going to do, because I'm upsizing it and there is, quite a bit of potting soil in there still, I'm going to fill it about halfway up before I put my plant in there. So I'm just going to simply go. Let's move that out of the way. Press down a little. Now, tomatoes have a pretty strong root system, but you want to be careful still. I'm going to keep that tag to put back in because tomato plants all kind of look alike. I'm just going to snip off these first leaves that came in when they were growing. And I can actually see some of the roots have started to surface, so this is prime time to get this guy out of this tiny pot. Now just be gentle, kind of squeeze the pot to loosen. There's much more root system now than there was when they were in the cell pack. So it's really holding on for dear life. Woo! So look at that. See how the root system has started to sort of wrap around the bottom, but beautiful roots, really good healthy roots, nice and white. Now what I'm going to do before I just plop it in there is I'm going to loosen it. So yeah, do this on a counter that you don't mind getting dirty. Again, I'm just kind of wiggling it. You might lose some, which is okay. And what this will do is it'll just give those roots a chance to spread out and not struggle to untangle. Think about this as well when you're putting them in the ground. You don't want to just put them in like a block the way they are. I'm going to loosen the top a little. I'm just getting a little airflow in there too. And I can smell it. It smells like a tomato. All right. That's pretty good. I'm going to drop it in. Okay, and you can see that stem is going to be covered up. Now I could put this back in, but I want some of the good new stuff because it's got all its good components And I, again, like to use my organic potting mix. Yeah, this plant will be quite happy in its new larger home. And there we have it. We're all potted up, and they will continue growing under my grow lights till they're ready for the garden. Be sure to like this video and subscribe. Thank you for watching.